welcome to another episode of DIOTAK. I'm Dio. Let's talk. My guest of the evening is a real estate investor. Give a warm welcome to Dohn Thornton.
Yes.
So, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. I really appreciate you inviting me on your podcast.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Hey.
So talk to me. You've been. I was reading about you a little bit. 20 years in real estate. Two in Florida, right? Actually,
20 in Florida.
20 in Florida. Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me what inspired you to do real estate? Because for 20 years, usually I meet people all the time because my wife is a real estate agent, right? We're here in New Jersey, and they'll do like 15 years, get money, and retire. They're good.
Right. Well, I have a very expensive wife. So
hey, I get it. I 100% understand.
No, for me, it was just sheer desperation.
Okay.
I have a really weird and unique path to real estate in the sense that my career path in my early 20s was going to be State Department, was going to be Russian because I spoke, I speak fluent Finnish, I speak fluent Russian.
Okay.
And I thought that I wanted to be in the State Department, be in the Foreign Service, and just go to different embassies. I wanted to be a Slavic language specialist.
Wow.
I went to Russia, to Moscow in 1989, and I worked at the embassy for 2 years when it was still the Soviet Union.
Okay.
And my career path kind of just went off a cliff because I fell in love with a Russian woman when I wasn't supposed to.
Oh, wow.
Right, because it was against embassy rules back then. You couldn't have any romantic liaisons with Russian women, and it was all of a sudden the government work was no longer a option for me.
Wow.
So, but I just, there was, when one door closes, another one opens. I ended up spending 10 years in Russia, working with American businesses. I started my own business. I found out about these 16 millimeter movie cameras that were just in a warehouse. You could pick them up for $10 a pop.
Wow.
So I bought like 50 of them. I put 3 in my suitcase. I flew to Los Angeles and just started visiting university film departents
and selling them.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know if I could sell them or not. So I went there with 3. I came back with over $20,000 of checks that people were ordered from me. So all of a sudden I had a business.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I did that for about 5 years. It was very lucrative, and the cameras ran out. And so I tried to get the. It was actually under the Defense Ministry. So I was working with, like the Russians' version of the Pentagon.
Yes.
I negotiated with them. We got a good price because I was picking them up at $10. I was selling them for $400. Okay.
Wow.
Pretty good margin.
Yes.
So I was able to go to 75. I thought that was fair. We could still make money at 75. So we start, and at the same time, I'd also contacted Eastman Kodak when they were still doing film, and I told them, I said, I've got these cameras. Why don't we talk about a joint marketing agreement where we can publicize the 60 millimeter movie camera and your film, right, to go with it. And we signed an exclusive marketing agreement with Eastman Kodak. It was going to be great. They were going to buy 50 a month. And as giveaways and so forth. And then it came time for us to sign a contract and get it started. And the frickin' Russians raised the price to $300.
Wow.
Blew us out of the water.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And so that was it. So with that, that door closed. So I ended up doing a lot of, but I got my feet wet. I liked Russia. I got married again. I got married the first woman at the embassy, but then we divorced. And I decided to play, double jeopardy and marry a Russian woman again.
Oh man! And are you an American? Like, are you?
Yeah, American. Yeah, grew up born in Arkansas, grew up in Missouri, and I just had I had an itch about Russia. I have no idea why. So anyway, long story short.
What a journey so far, right?
Well, long story short. I was working for an American company. It's a pipeline inspection company. They send their little robots into sewers and water pipes and so forth to see what the defects are. And so they wanted me to try to sell this in Eastern Europe. So they sent me over. I had gone to Orlando. They sent me back. So, my wife obviously we have an apartment there, so we had
Correct.
somewhere to live. So anyway, I put together a consortium with a Russian company, a Canadian company, and a British company for us to go in and inspect, clean, and rehab water pipes. And we did a test project, 500 meters. It went perfect. We had an order for 18 kilometers worth of rehab, water pipes.
Which is very needed. It's I feel like
Yes.
yes,
I was going to make $1 million in commission on that because it was a
wow,
huge project. My company,
banking.
my company said they pulled out the last minute because they said, what if our equipment doesn't work? We don't want to take the risk. So they pulled out. They left me hanging. So I was expecting $1 million in commission. And then in a day, I was fired. And I had no way to feed my family, no way to support them. So I just vowed. I told my wife, I said, look, I'm going to go back to Orlando. I will do anything, but I will never, ever work for anybody again. So I went to Orlando. That's where my sister was living at the time. And I said, okay, what can I do to make money where I'm not working for someone? So I tried to be a mortgage broker and I spectacularly failed. It was
Mm.
just, it was horrible. I couldn't do it. Tried to be a realtor, could not do it. And then somebody told me that there was a technique as a real estate investor where you could get a house where a homeowner owed more than what the property was worth. And even though nobody wanted those houses, they said I could negotiate with the bank and I could create equity with my negotiation. So I take something that has no value and make 30, 50, $60,000 just from thin air by negotiating. So I said, really? So I said, if I can negotiate with Russians, communists, in defense ministry, army people in Russia, I can negotiate with Chase or Wells Fargo.
Yes.
And you know what? It took me about a year to learn it really well. But after that, the first year I had my first closing in February of 2004 for like $13,000. By the end of the year, I'd made $800,000 doing short sales.
Wow.
And then, this was in 2004. So, all through the Great Recession, I mean, I was making millions during the Great Recession. I mean, every other house was a short sale, at the time. So, I got good at it. I set up systems. And so, I mean, I work 20 hours a day. I mean, it's going to be a week maybe right now. And so why would I want to retire if I've got that good income coming in all the time? And plus, I learned so much in my real estate career, especially about how to drastically reduce your taxes. I was a little bit bored of real estate, but luckily I found something else to get my juices going. So my real estate my short sale business is just going on autopilot now, which is great. We love it. But now I focus more on helping people, legally reduce their taxes like by as much as 97%. And anybody except W-2 employees. And I found that it's been getting such a reaction from people. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I guess I underestimated Americans' hatred of taxes.
Yeah.
So I'm just loving that. So I'm doing this almost full time now, and it's awesome.
Well, that's amazing. That's if there's any one thing that America, the people of America don't understand is taxes.
Yep.
Which is once you're able to understand the rules of the game, now you're able to play the game, right?
Right.
They're always saying, authors and real estate investors is always they talk about loopholes and how to manage things. So if you're able to master that, I mean, who's going to stop you? I mean, you're playing by the rules of the game.
Well, I'm ashamed to admit that I was consider myself a very financially astute person and running my business. I didn't know about this strategy. I had to have somebody tell me, what are you doing with your taxes? I said, well, I had to bite the bullet and pay them. And he says, you don't have to. And I said, well, how do I do that? And they said, well, there's this trust. There's this trust that only the ultra wealthy use, have known about for decades. You should look into it. And I said, well, I don't know. He said, how about this? You won't ever pay capital gains tax again. I said, yeah, really?
Wow.
Okay, tell me more about it. And it took me about a couple months for me to do my due diligence. I researched everything, and it was exactly as advertised. It was just word of mouth. It wasn't advertised anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, sure, I want to do that because the idea that I could have an investment property, I could sell it, and now normally what you do as an investor, you would have to do what they call a 1031 exchange, which means you only have 30 to
Mm-hmm.
45 days to find a replacement property, and you have to close in 6 months. Otherwise, you got to pay those taxes, right? And so it's a 50-50 proposition if you can do it or not. And they're pains in the butt. Nobody likes them, but that's the only game in town as far as most people knew. But when I heard that I could sell my investment property into my trust with me as a trustee, so I would no longer own the property, but I would control it because I'm the trustee. And then when I sell that property, when the money comes back, because the trust is in compliance with IRS code 643, then as long as that money stays in the trust, there's no tax. All the capital gains are deferred permanently. And it's just like, my gosh, I mean, I started telling people about it, and I started, the more I talked about it, I realized, what am I giving this away for free?
Yeah, correct.
I can promote this and make money on it as well. I mean, it's absurd how much money you can save. I met a business owner in August. He was selling his business for $7.5 million.
Wow.
And he was going to get hit with $1.7 million in capital gains tax. Well, he actually found me on TikTok, and he reached out to me, and we talked about it, and we educated him and so forth. So he bought a trust, and then that $1.75 million that he would have paid to the government, now he has it, and he's using it to invest in other projects because that's money that, I mean, think about it. That's like walking. That's like going into Walter White's storage unit, where
Yes.
Skyler had all that stacks of money, right? Well, not that big of a stack, but finding like a hockey bag full of money. That's what it's like when all of a sudden you think that you have to pay that tax. You find a legal way to get around it. Now, all of a sudden, all that money is available to do whatever you want with. Invest it, use it for other expenses through the trust. I mean, it's fascinating how it works.
And for those for our listeners and viewers, can you give a brief description? What is a trust?
Okay. A trust, in its essence, is a contract. Okay. It is a mechanism where there is an asset that's being managed by a trustee on behalf of the beneficiaries. It is its own entity. Okay. But it is basically a what do you want to call it? A conservationist. No, that's not that. It's a conservatory. No,
Okay.
I get the terms mixed up, but you know what I'm trying to say is that
Yes.
basically this entity is designed to protect whatever it is you're protecting on behalf of whoever you want this to benefit. In this case, the beneficiaries. And as a trustee, I own title to it, but I don't own it. The trust owns it. I have equitable title as a trustee, and it's done for the beneficiaries who get the benefit but have no managerial responsibility or permission, right? So it kind of works together, and most of them are done to protect the assets. And this trust, for example, it can't, it has never been penetrated by anybody, no lawyers, no government. The only way they can penetrate it is through if they can prove that you were doing fraudulent activity.
Correct.
So, the idea that if I have my house in the trust and somebody comes walking by and slips and falls, right? Normally they could sue you, but since your asset is in the trust, I mean, if they can try it, but the first time the judge hears that it's a spendthrift trust, he or she will toss it. And as trustee, even though I control the asset,
It doesn't. It's almost like an LLC.
it's LLC on Barry Bonds times 1,000 steroids.
That's a great analogy.
Yes.
That's a great
I mean,
analogy.
and the trust would be like Barry with a walnut-sized head, and everything else is like this. I mean, seriously, it is the best. Listen, any attorney worth his or her salt can crack an LLC. They can crack a corporation. They can pierce the corporate veil. Not this one. This one is impenetrable.
And what inspired you to share this? Because knowledge like this, it it's to keep away. They wouldn't want the public to know about it.
Well, you got to remember who. This is an interesting situation about the tax code.
Mm-hmm.
This trust was in existence before the tax code ever came into being in the 1930s. This was the vehicle that the ultra rich, like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, all the Vanderbilts, everybody back then, they all had these trusts. So when the Roosevelt administration decided they were going to institute the tax code and bring on the IRS, you don't think the government wrote the tax law, do you? No, they hired the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds attorneys, and they wrote the tax code for all intents and purposes. Well, what did they do? They included a code that was specifically done for this trust. And so this trust now has these two, they're not loopholes, they're actually codes. I mean, they're in the code that says that with the capital gains, I already told you about that. And then they have another part of IRS code 643 where, if you have income that comes into, let's say, an LLC, okay? And so if I have, let's say that I have, let's look at my business, my real estate investing business, okay? So I can sell my assets of my business into the trust. So now that's just not like a car or a house. It's also my know-how, my strategies, everything that makes my business go is up here.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually sell that into my trust, right? So now I set the LLC up to run my real estate investing business. So it can't do my business unless it has access to the assets. So the trust leases those assets to the LLC. And the trust becomes a 90% limited partner in the LLC. So what are we doing? We're setting up two major expenses for the LLC that is going to
Correct.
It's going to bring down that LLC's taxable income to maybe 3% of what it would normally.
Correct.
So let's say that my net income, my LLC's net income from my real estate business was $1 million. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The lease payment can be up to 70% of the net income for the LLC. So I can move $700,000 from the LLC's 1 million net income into the trust. That's going to bring that down to $300,000. Now, because the trust is a 90% member of that LLC, it's going to get paid the remaining 90% of that $300,000, which is $270,000, which is a K1 distribution that goes over to the trust. So now, when I go to my accountant with the LLC, I say my income was only $30,000.
Wow. So
you're not going to pay anything on that at all. Now, the $970,000 that went over to the trust, because a lease payment is passive income for the trust, a K1 distribution is passive income for the trust. That means that I, as the trustee, have the discretionary power granted to me by IRS Code 643 to declare that an extraordinary dividend for the trust. And when that happens, any taxes that would have been owed are deferred forever. So the LLC doesn't pay any taxes, the trust doesn't pay any taxes, and any of the money that would have been taxed is now in my trust. As trustee, I can use it to pay trust expenses. I can buy more real estate. I can invest in crypto, stocks, whatever I want to do. I'm using money that would have been taxed now to make more money.
So you're saving a good chunk of your money, mm-hmm, and using that same money to invest.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yes. So
And this
you never have a taxable event with this strategy.
and it's everything's legal. This is
100% legal.
this is I want to ask you, is this what Robert
Kiyosaki?
explains?
No, not this trust. No, he does not.
Because he says every amount of capital he gains, he invests in real estate, so he doesn't pay taxes. So I'm wondering
Well,
if it's
there are different strategies that you can do to lower your taxes, but there's nothing like this that applies to anything more than real estate. Like for example, if you're crypto, I mean, you're getting capital gains every time you get money, and that's what 24%, I think.
mhm.
Um, but if your crypto is an asset of the trust, no taxes. You know, if you're a 1099 employee, I talked to a programmer today. He makes $300,000 as a 1099, but because the way it works is that 1099 income is considered ordinary income by the IRS, and so
Mhm.
if you make more than $165,000 a year, then you're getting taxed at 32%. So you can imagine how much money he was having to pay because he doesn't have any deductions because it's just straight 1099 income, right?
Mhm.
So I showed him how he would pay hardly any tax, if anything, from that by running his 1099 through an LLC and just doing what I described. And he says, "Oh my gosh, you're telling me that I don't have to pay these taxes?" I said, "No, as long as you follow the strategy, you get a trust, and you follow the strategy, there's no tax."
Got it, got it. How does one start, right? I mean, obviously you will have to build some form of assets, right?
Well, if you don't have the income, then there's no reason, right? I mean, if you're making less than $100,000, or if you're a W-2 employee, if you're on a salary, this can't help you. Okay, it can only help 1099 contractors, business owners, like doctors, anybody who has a medical practice, um, crypto, anybody who has anything where you have either ordinary income coming in or capital gains. Okay, that's where this helps. I guess if you work for Microsoft and you're on a salary, can't help you. But if you don't have a salary, this will 100% help you. But again,
Yeah, self-employed.
yeah, you really, or a commission salesperson, realtors, brokers, mortgage brokers, people, anybody who's on commission, same thing, as long as it's not salary. So, what you're looking at here is if you're not making 200,000, at least 250, may or may not be worth it, right? But if you make that or more, then it will completely make a huge difference in what you're paying in taxes.
Wow. Wow. That you
Mhm.
just gave us a master class.
Yeah.
Masterclass. What else do you have? What else? What else are you offering? What else do you want to tell the people?
Well, let's talk about a couple of things. One is that people who have a business or are self-employed, they think in terms of write-offs. Okay.
Correct.
Unfortunately, there's only so much you can write off. The beauty with the trust is that almost everything you do can be a trust write-off or a trust expense. Let me give an example. Okay. I'm a real estate investor. Like I said, I'm down here in Florida. I buy houses and do short sales all over the state. So I can be driving a lot. I can put like 100,000 miles on my car in a couple of years. I do that a lot. So before I had the trust, if I went to the gas station and I filled up, I could not write that off. If I went to Jiffy Lube and got an oil change, couldn't write it off, or got my tires balanced, nothing to do with that could be written off. If my car is a trust expense, is a trust asset, I should say, then anything having to do with that car, the trust pays for. Okay. If I have children in the trust as beneficiaries, if I have any child younger than 21, then the trust will pay for almost everything that child does. school, books, food, clothes. It's a trust expense. Try doing that if you have an LLC. If you could, what would your accountant say if you say, okay, I want my trust, my LLC to pay for my kids' books or my kids' tuition, and it'll be a write-off. He'll laugh at you, but you can with the trust. Okay. So it is just so much more leeway with a trust expense than you have as a write-off. So if my house is in the trust as an asset, anything having to do with that house is a trust expense. If the water heater breaks, trust pays for it. If I want to put a new pool in, trust expense. Right. If I want to, whatever it is, if it has to do with that property, trust expense. So, and you're paying for that with pre-tax money because it's money that you didn't pay tax on to begin with when it came into the trust, and now it's just you're not having to you just have more you get more bang for your buck, right? So right. The trust expenses, wellness, anything having to do with wellness is a trust expense. Are you married?
Yes.
Okay. Does your wife like wellness stuff?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Assuming you have the money in the trust, of course, but let's say that you told her and said, honey, how would you like to fly to Maui and we're going to go on a getaway? And the trust will pay for it. That'd be kind of cool, right?
That'd be fantastic, actually.
Well, that's what you can do. As long as there's money in the trust, of course. If you're broke, you got to pay for it somehow.
Yeah,
the
correct.
Point is that you could not even think about doing that as a write-off with a business, but you can with the trust.
Wow.
For example. Wow. So that is one thing that really attracted me as well, because it's like, man, the only thing you can't pay for, the trust cannot pay for food, fashion, and fun. Right? So other than that, trust will pay for it.
Food, fashion, and fun.
Right.
Everything's a business, right?
Yeah.
Everything's a business.
Right. As long as you have a legitimate business
reason, yes,
then that's a trust expense.
How does this one, right? How does one, like when you first started learning about this, right? Researching, what were some of your steps into that you did to educate yourself on this?
Well,
like, is there any books you can refer?
Yes, I have a number of books and videos and IRS analysis of this, things like that. So yes, there's plenty of material you can do. Here's the thing: the reason why most people don't know about this is because, and I didn't know about this until I educated myself. I had no idea that there was two kinds of law in the U.S. You have contract law, and then you have legislative law. So the First Amendment in the Constitution, Section 10, states that no state shall pass any law that impairs the obligation of contracts. The founders put that in there from the very First Amendment. People think that the First Amendment is just about freedom of speech. Well, the Section 10 is about contracts. Okay, so the founding fathers knew that the sanctity of a contract was so important to our governmental system that no legislature could pass any laws that would regulate or get in the way of a contract. Now, a trust, by definition, is a contract. Okay. Now, what happened was legislative law, which means anytime any legislative body passes a law. Okay. So if Congress passes a law, then it can regulate it, it can tax it, it can do whatever. So, but there's kind of like, that's where majority of the trusts that are made they have their origin in some kind of law that was passed. Okay. This trust is a contract law trust, which means it was not created by the legislature. So this trust, I don't like, if I buy a trust from an attorney, then I'm required by law to register that trust with the state, to do an annual report every year, to keep track of minutes, all that kind of stuff, because that's what the legislature required when they created the law that governs the trust. Okay.
Right. Yes.
This contract law trust was never created by the legislature. Therefore, I don't have to register it with the state. It's not required. Okay. So that's just a small example. But what I'm trying to say is that if you, most people don't know this, but attorneys don't sell this trust. And the reason why they don't is because this trust, with its spendthrift provision, which protects it from any lawsuits, except for fraudulent behavior, of course. But besides that, they can't penetrate it. The bar associations will not allow an attorney to sell or create something that another attorney cannot sue. So if you went to an attorney and said, I want to buy a non-grantor irrevocable complex discretionary spendthrift trust, which is what the name of this trust is, they won't do it because they're licensed and the bar association won't let them. So that's why, and conversely, a lot of accountants don't know about this because they're trained in contract law. Legislative law. So they're used to that, but they don't know about this. A lot of them don't know. I mean, the ones that are good know about it.
Correct.
But your normal everyday Joe hangs his CPA in his window in a strip mall somewhere, they're not going to know about this, and that's why, because it was only kept for the really, really wealthy for, ever since, as long as the country's been in existence. So that's one of the reasons I get asked questions a lot saying, well, why haven't I ever heard of this before? Well, that's why. Who's going to tell you? Attorneys don't sell it. The CPAs don't know about it. And if they do, they don't want to sell it because they make more money by pushing the other stuff that they get paid every
yeah, there's no benefit for them.
Right, exactly.
Why am I going to sell something that I can't profit out of?
Right.
So
is this trust you pay for it one time, you buy it, and that's it. You don't have to pay an account. I mean, obviously you do file your taxes, and you do, because let's face it, you cannot get a bank account unless you have an EIN number, right? So this is registered with the IRS, and you get your EIN number to get your bank account and so forth, and we file every year, but that's it. I mean, nothing else has to be done. You don't have to keep making payments on it every year.
Now, is this strategy, does it work only in Florida, or does it work
50 states?
In 50 states? Okay.
All 50 states.
And where can we if I wanted to purchase, or any listener, viewers, or anybody that knows you that still hasn't contacted you, where can they buy one of these trusts?
They can come to me, and I can get it. I can get them to them. I can make sure it gets done.
Okay.
I'm a contact person, so it's very easy. All you have to do is just fill out a very simple online application. The main information that you need to apply for this is you need to know what the name of the trust is going to be. You need to know who the person is that's going to set the trust up, because you can't do it personally if you're going to be the trustee, because it's a non-grantor trust. That means if you set it up yourself and become the trustee, it's called a grantor trust, and the IRS will not give you any tax reductions at all, because they'll say it's the same thing as you. It's an alter ego of you, therefore there's no tax advantages. So in my case, this got my neighbor to do it. Neighbor did it. Created the trust, named me the trustee, and then resigned. And so now it's a non-grantor trust. And then I can, I can go ahead and control everything, but I don't own anything, and I'm in full compliance with the IRS. So you need to know who that person is going to create it, and at least one beneficiary, and that's really it. That's really it. And then you just, once you invest the money into it, it's sent to you in like 3 to 5 days by FedEx second day air once it's processed, and then boom, you've got a trust, and then we can we can advise you for an entire year as part of the investment of the trust to make sure that you set it up correctly. Any questions? So after your first year, you're going to know right, left. I mean, back and forth how it works. And listen, as someone who ran a S corporation for almost 20 years, this is so much simpler. It's crazy how much simpler it is. I thought it was going to be complicated. Oh, trust. Oh my gosh, But no, it's easy. It's so much more simple. It's so much simpler than I thought it was going to be.
No, it sounds like you can save a lot on taxes.
Big time. And I know that if somebody slips and falls or falls off a ladder in one of my houses, they're not going to sue me. They can get the insurance company. They're not going to get me or my company or my asset because it's wrapped up in a titanium vault of asset protection.
Wow, that's incredible.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
That's incredible.
Honestly, I don't know why any real estate investor doesn't have a trust. They should. I don't know why any business owner doesn't have one. And any 1099 employee that makes more than $200,000 a year, you're stupid if you don't have this. If you have crypto, you should have this because you're going to get hit with capital gains. Any business owner who wants to sell his business needs to have this to avoid capital gains. So my opinion is that we're going to see in the next 2 to 5 years, more and more people are going to get educated because look, you're giving me a platform. I'm telling about it. It's going to keep going on and just gain steam. And more people are going to have this because why should the ultra rich only get advantage of this? And why not us? What are we, chop liver? Don't we deserve to have the same same loopholes, or what do you want to call it? Why not?
No, I mean, you're right. Unless they don't want us to have it. I mean, but you can't say somebody doesn't want you to have something if you never knew it existed.
Yeah, and it's there in the tax code.
Mm-hmm.
They put it in from the very beginning. It's not like this has just happened 10 years ago. It's been there.
I think it's just throughout the years we've been. I mean, think about it. We've been programmed to, once you got a job, you got to pay your taxes. That's all that once you get a job or you get income, you have to pay your taxes.
Yeah.
You've been especially if you're an entrepreneur who's going or just started working for himself and they got a big commission check. They have to, especially if they don't have the knowledge, right?
Right.
A lot of when you're young and you get your first check, you don't know you have to pay tax, that you're responsible. Mm-hmm. A job just takes them automatically, but you're responsible to do your own, due diligence. So I think once somebody is able to do it, you start spreading the word.
Yeah.
And you can hit up Dohn.
Hit me up. I'm here.
How long, if somebody reaches out and says they're interested for you creating this trust for them, how long the procedure would take?
Well, in my experience, most people want to take some time to study it and figure out what they want. And so sometimes I'll talk to them 3, 4, or 5 times. We'll do a Zoom, we'll do a phone call or whatever. And then when they finally say, you know what, we're good, that actually goes by quick. I mean, they fill out the application, they wire the money, and then within 3, 4 days, they have it in their hands.
And I'm sure you'll guide them. Hey, go, research this, go read this.
Yes, 100%. I give them all the material they're going to need to be able to come to a decision that's based on fact and based on statistics.
Which is the most important part because being as well in the real estate industry, a lot of sellers, real estate agents, brokers, whatnot, usually are in the hunt for the money. They generally don't educate their public or their customers for their service they're providing, which is especially now, like I'm not sure in Florida, but over here everything it's super high.
Oh, in Florida too.
Right. Yeah. So you have some understanding of it. And somebody who got an FHA loan, one moment they gave them, let's say, 400,000. Yeah. And for some reason now when they redo it in the time, because it's certain time that they have to use that.
Right.
If not, they got to do the process over again. Well, because over here there's not a lot of inventory, right? The one who this is a seller's market. It's not a buyer, it's a seller's market, right? In my opinion, right? I could be wrong. So
it's slowly changing, but for the most part it is, yes.
Yeah. So when that period ends, they have to reevaluate themselves. So now they get a lower amount. They go for 400,000 now, let's say, to 3 or 2,
Mm-hmm.
and they get frustrated.
Right.
They get frustrated, they get unhappy, and ask why. And this is where the real estate agents and the mortgage holder, whoever's their lender is, have to educate them on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I think one of the things I enjoy talking about you is that you're giving them that flexibility of the understanding,
Right.
because people are getting smarter, like you said. People are getting smarter, and they need people that can trust and invest time educating them.
Yeah, and I'm a frustrated professor in a sense because I love to teach. And I love to teach this because, you know, it's one thing for, like Ted Kennedy back in the day, when he got out from under Chappaquiddick, when that poor woman, Mary Jo Kopechne, drowned,
Mm.
and they sued him and they couldn't get anything from him. Why not? Because he had everything in a trust. And they have lived. I mean, the system's been rigged against anybody but the ultra rich for so long. So it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's a mission, but it's kind of, because I just feel like we need to even the playing ground a little bit here, because we deserve the same chance to use legal means to avoid taxes, not evade them, but we have the right to avoid tax if it's a legal strategy, and this is.
Damn right it is. For those who were seeking your service, please tell the people where they can find you at.
Okay. You know what? I think the easiest thing you should do, and this is gonna be weird to hear this, but I'm gonna give you my cell phone number. Okay? Text me. Text me and we can set up a time to talk. It is 407-902-7827.
Boom.
Yeah. Go ahead. Text me.
Do you have any social media handles, website?
Oh yeah, I'm all over the place. I have a my YouTube channel is Dohn. I spelled DOHN, just so you know. Dohn, the Infinite Wealth Strategist. All my YouTube's there. I'm on TikTok. You can get me on. I think it's called Ironclad Trust is my handle on TikTok. My name Dohn Thornton on Instagram, Facebook. I'm there on Facebook. I'm the only Dohn Thornton there with that spelling. So I'm on Twitter. You can find me everywhere.
Boom. Go check him out. Go follow him.
Yeah.
Definitely reach out and get a consultation. His number's here. Dohn, thank you for giving us this master class today. It's been an honor.
I really appreciated the invitation. I knew it was going to be fun, and it didn't disappoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, guys. I'm out.